The I'm reading from the Gemara in Chagiga in Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis. The pasuk from Tehillim reads the following: Yomam Yitzaveh Adonai Chasdo V'Layla Shiro Imi. God will command His kindness in the day, and at night His song is with me. Amar Reish Lakish. Kol ha'osek b'Torah b'Layla. Anyone who delves into Torah study at night, Hakadosh Baruch Hu moshech alav chut shel chesed bayom, who stretches upon him the string of kindness during the day. Shneimar Yomam Yitzaveh Hashem Chasdo V'Layla Shiro Imi. That in return for what God commands His kindness during the day, because His song was with me at night. Chazal have this terminology that they use in many places of the chut shel chesed, this string of kindness. There's a few other places in the Bavli, to the best of my knowledge, that this idea appears. One is in the Gemara in Talmid, in Masachet Talmid, in Daf Chav Ches. The Gemara says the following: Amar B'Yonasan, Kol ha'mochiach es chavero l'shem shamayim. Anyone who rebukes his friend for the sake of heaven, zoche lechelko shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He merits the portion of his Creator. Shne'emar, as it says in the pasuk in Mishlei in Perek Chav Ches, mochiach adam acharai. The one who gives rebuke to man follows me. V'lo od, and furthermore, ela shemoshchen alav chut shel chesed. Someone who gives this rebuke in the proper fashion, they're stretched upon him the string of kindness. A string of kindness. The last time, again, as far as I know, the third time that this appears in the Bavli is in Maseches Megillah, and it's not in reference to a certain act has the reward that the person will get a chut shel chesed. Rather, it's referring to a specific person, and who is that specific person? Esther Hamalka. Esther Hamalka. There's an opinion in the Gemara in Megillah, right? It says Amar Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, Esther Yerakrokas Haisa. Esther was in fact a sickly individual. She was sick. She was weak. She didn't have a lot of physical stamina. So why was she have this tremendous like almost like a cult of personality? Not so fair, but like this sensation, that was an empire-wide sensation with this woman. Everyone was fascinated by her because. So it says, Esther Akurkas Haisa. However, there was a string of kindness, a chut shel chesed, that was placed over her. What is this idea? What? Sorry? Mashul chalea. Yeah, was stretched upon her. A chut shel chesed was stretched upon her. The idea of chut shel chesed. What does this mean, chut shel chesed? So first of all, I think it would be good to backtrack. I just realized to backtrack and define what chesed is. What is the attribute of chesed? The Gemara in Sukkah and Daf Mem Beis asks a series of questions. What is the distinction between chesed and tzedakah? You seem to use those terms interchangeably. Like you do an act of charity for someone, you do an act of kindness for someone. So says the Gemara, tzedakah osim rak im ha'aniyim. You can only do charity for poor people. Chesed im ashirim v'im aniyim. You can do with a poor person and a rich person. What is the depth of understanding of that statement? It's saying that this is showing what defines chesed as opposed to tzedakah, charity versus kindness. Charity is the function of charity is to fill a need. Someone has a need, they're lacking something, and you give them something in order to fill that lack. That's tzedakah. Chesed, you're not doing it necessarily in order to fill a lack. You're doing it just because there is a need to give. Chesed, the interaction between human beings, is meant to be defined by chesed. That's how it's meant to be defined. So it doesn't matter if the person needs it or doesn't need it. It's just because you want to be able to give that thing to the person, so you give it. Therefore, it can be done with people who aren't lacking anything. It's just to be able to give. And it is this theme of the chesed element, which I believe is at the basis of the theme of the next tam that we're up to, the pazer. The pazer is one of the more complex cantillations in the whole pantheon of cantillations. It's actually one of the more longer ones in this book. So it says Rav Kook.
So one would have thought that saying that Chesed was done in rich or poor meant an emotional need or something.
What do you mean an emotional need?
In other words, people have other needs, except Anani has his overriding need is the lacking.
So I'll tell you a proof that an emotional need counts for tzedakah. This is lahalacha. This counts for tzedakah. The Rambam brings this in the 8th chapter of Hilchos Matnos La'aniyim, and it is a proof from the Gemara in Ksubos, if I'm not mistaken. The story with Hillel Hazaken. What was the story? The one day they saw Hillel Hazaken running through the streets of Jerusalem, saying, "Make way, make way! There's a horse and rider coming through. Make way!" And the following, walking, like running through the streets. So they asked him, "Really, like this is appropriate for you to go and make way in the streets for some guy?" Right. So this was a person who was a high official at one point, and he was accustomed to this type of treatment. And then one day he suffered a horrible tragedy, and he didn't have that status anymore. So in order to give that experience to him, so he did it. It was mishum tzedakah, right? The Gemara over there is talking about tzedakah. So we see, and by the way, this is important to know, balavachi, that there are things that are emotional needs for a person, and providing those things is considered tzedakah. A person can use his meiser ksafim for such a thing. Obviously, these things need to be the details, but in general, it's not just it doesn't have food, God forbid, or doesn't have this thing, right? This bill needs to be paid, etc. It can also be defined with that.
That was learned out from Dei Master Yatzarot. People have
meaning the lack is defined by the person as opposed to some objective standard. Correct.
So you incurred a loss.
Of course. What else would I expect from you, Pesach?
If you incurred a loss in doing this act, was that be counted as your funds, your charity fund?
Yes, in theory, yes. Yes, it would. It would be. It would be. So, Rav Moshe Feinstein has a very important tshuva where he talks about the same way a person should give maaser from their money, a person should also give maaser from their time. Right? Your time is an asset.
But if their time is
the time itself can be used. It can be measured in monetary things for sure. Like for example, lawyers that do work for free, they charge $500 an hour, $600 an hour, and they take a case and they invest a certain amount of hours in it, or they tell their team to invest a certain amount of hours in it. That's even more definable because they have to pay their employees to do it. But let's say the lawyer themselves, they take on a certain project and they invest a certain amount of hours in it. And say, okay, so I'm investing this amount of monetary value in this person for free, and like that's charity. Anyway, so the Pazer says Rav Kook, the ruach nediva somecheti et hashira, the spirit of giving, ruach nediva, the spirit of giving. It is introduced into the melody of the song. It desires to spread out all of the spectrum of its rivers, meaning its rivers, right? It's outpouring. So already we see how Rav Kook is thematically translating this word. Pazer, lefazer, means to spread out, right? L'chol avarim, in all directions, l'harif or chayim simcha, in order to give out the light of life and joy. Otzma v'ziv l'chol afasim, strength and light to all of the low levels. Bishmei shamayim mimal, ascended up to the heavens. V'tachtit eretz b'ma'amakim, and down to the lowest recesses of the earth. V'chol ruach, in every direction. Ever upina, in every nook and cranny, so to speak, in every corner. B'chol machashakei sheol, and in all of the darkness of the underworld. B'chol chagvei sela. Chagvei sela is a term that we see in the Tanakh. Like chagvei sela is like the crest, the cresses, right? The cresses of the rock, like the crests of the rock. B'chol tohamot v'nivchayem, in all the depths. Huh? Sorry? Cleft. Excuse me. What word was I thinking of? Is there a word crest? Crevice? Maybe that's what I was thinking of. You guys got the point. I'm glad we all got it. Yeah. Listen, this poetry is rough. Translating it is not easy. The shear just bursts forth. Mitparetz, like lifrotz geder, like to break through a barrier. So the shira just is poretz, like it breaks through The Gaona v'no'ama, in its strength and its pleasantness. Mifazeret, and spreads out. Yet slila hamleya edna chedva oz v'simchat olamim. Its strength, its splendor, and its joy, its eternal joy. V'shamayim be'eretz merananim, and heaven and earth they are rejoicing. V'chol hayekum malei gdula v'romamut meguveret zikei yifat sovas machot. Wow, sovas machot is a paraphrase from Tehillim Tes Zion. Ends off with Sova Todi'eni Orachayim, that God will make known to me the pathways of life. Sova Samachos Panecha, and satiate me with joy by seeing His face. Sova Samachos Panecha. So this experience of Sova Samachot is a function of the Pazer. Ha'olchim umit Pazrim, that continue to be spread out and disseminated. Haloch va'alei, haloch v'yared, upwards and downwards, haloch v'ratzo, backwards and forwards. V'chut hachesed mitgaber, and the string of kindness becomes strengthened evermore. Or chayim kavi, the light of life in a linear progression. Holech umitpashet mimal, it continues to spread out from up above. The noam hamenucha, and the pleasantness of rest, mistamel betzido hayamani, is given pictorial description in its left side. Now, let's just stop on that for 1 second. What is he talking about? The menucha represented B'tzido Yamani, and its right side. So what is he referring to? If you look at the pazer, how it looks, it kind of looks like a pitchfork of sorts. But right on the left side, I said it again. The right side structure is a munach, which we've gone over a few times. The munach, this kind of circular, half circle or whatever shaped thing. The munach makes up the right side structure. So there's a pleasantness of menucha. Actually, just gonna write that down because I want to get back to that. Hold on 1 second. Yoni, you'll have to edit this part out. I'm going. I don't have a pen. Just really quickly. I want to get back to that. No menucha. Thank you. Shakach. Vayar menucha kitov, and this is the expression of he saw rest which was good. That's in the blessing that is given to Shevet Yisachar. V'ni'imat zmirot mofat b'hofaot Yeshua, and the songs are giving expression to the experience of redemption. Mofaat Yeshua, l'chol dakei ruach, to all those who are downtrodden. V'rivivei hamanginot mesha'ashim ba'alizatam et kol kamei ora, and the sprinklings of life give forth their joy in all of their light and pleasantness. Rucha v'Yeshua, its spirit and its salvation. Me'ata v'ad olam, for all eternity. Ta'oreh azot hi chosna shel Yeshuat olam. This expression is the strength of the perpetual Yeshua, the perpetual salvation. Asher l'meginat hapazer, which is contained in the cantillation of the pazer. Hamitzaltzelet b'tziltzalei shama, which gives out its rings that can be heard. Right, Tziltzalei Shama, a paraphrase of the last chapter of Tehillim. The pazer is one of the more complex cantillations. There are some cantillations that are very simple, pashta, munach. Right, these are relatively simple. The pazer is a very complex cantillation. Pazer, it's all over the place. Umurnina levavot shel alfei revavot nishamot rivevei nachat, and is able to give joy and uplift the hearts of a multitude of souls. B'chol malei hayikum, in all of creation. B'chol sfirot hamerchakim, and in all of the spheres, even far distant ones. B'chol ma'arachot u'madrigot, in all the different levels. Hamochim kaf b'simchat leiv, and they all begin to clap with joy. V'noam heid kol hazorem chayim va'oz b'pe'er manginat timat hapazer, and they increase in their awareness of life and strength and beauty when they hear the pazer being called out. The multitude of souls that hear the pazer, they become overjoyed with their own sense of life. B'bitoy higyono ubetoar haglamat tiv k'divato, both in how it's expressed, meaning like how it's actually sounded out when reading a pasuk with a pazer, in its toar, in its pictorial representation, haglamat tiv k'tivato, and how it's written out, meaning the sign that indicates a pazer. Pazer natan le'evyonim. It is alluding to this pasuk in Tehillim Kuf Yud Beis. Pazer, he disperses he disperses of himself to the poor. Tzidkato omedet la'ad, and his righteousness stands forever. Karno tarum, and his horn, which is a euphemism for his honor, is lifted up in tremendous honor. So what are all these points? There's like, I think, three central points that he's saying that define this spirit of pazer. So first of all, right off the bat, we have the idea of pazer, to disseminate, to disperse. The idea being is that the pazer is the energy of nidivut, of giving, from the sense of bursting forth, the need to share, the need. Right? There's just such an overwhelming richness inside. It needs to be shared from the outside. It needs to be shared to the outside. This is the idea that we find in the prophets very often of the mevaser. Mevaser means to give good news. And it's interesting that we quoted a very important verse in the last Haftorah that we read yesterday from Yeshayahu Nun Beis. In Yeshayahu Nun Beis, it talks about one of the experiences of the redemption is that there's going to be this energy of the mevaser, of the one who gives good news. This idea, as I'm sure we're all kind of sensing, was a theme that was stolen by the Christian world, that the good news, giving over the good news, is announcing the redemption. But there's a specific definition for what the mevaser is going to come to say. This is what the mevaser comes to say. Yeshayahu Nun Beis. Man avu al harim raglei mevaser. How pleasant it is to see you climb up to the top of the mountains, oh, you mevaser, one who gives good news. What is the person giving good news going to say? What are they going to say? So number one, mashmiya shalom. They're going to tell everyone about all the peace. There's no more fighting anymore. Mevaser tov, mashmiya yeshua. They're going to tell everyone about salvation. Omer Letzion, and they're going to tell Sion, meaning the collective of the Jewish people, Malach Elohayich, God has taken over. God has taken over. There's no more king other than Hashem. That's it. So those are the three messages. He's going to say about peace. He's going to tell everyone that there's salvation, right, at the personal, individual level, and Malach, the Malach Elohayich B'Tzion, that God has reigned in the land of Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, with Zion being the epicenter of that. Baby's not king anymore, right? But the idea of the mevaser, regardless of the specific messages, obviously the specific messages of the mevaser are important, but the idea of the mevaser is that you're contained with this, right? With this tremendous positivity, with this tremendous good news. You need to climb up to the top of the mountains and shout it out to tell everyone. That's the pazer, to disseminate. Right? It's like, it's poretz, as Rav Kook says. It just it beams out. It beams out. And what is the impetus to beam out this positivity, to beam out this goodness? It is the chut shel chesed. The chut shel chesed is the thing that triggers the mevaser to give over his good news. What is the chut shel chesed? Going back to one of the examples that we gave of the chut shel chesed, that Esther is the figure. To the best of my knowledge, there's not any other figure that we say has a chut shel chesed, meaning a particular person that we know about a chut shel chesed. Where is this? This is an explicit verse in Megillah Esther. Anyone know the Megillah Esther a little bit? Right? Vahi Esther noseis chen beinei kol roeha. She found grace in the eyes of everyone. What does chen mean? Where does the word chen come from? Chen means grace. Chinam, nachon, exactly. Chinam comes from the word for free. So what does it mean that someone has found grace in your eyes, that you want to just give them stuff for free? Right? Meaning you want to give them chesed. You don't want to give them tzedakah because they're lacking something, they're missing this, they're missing that. You just want to give them. That's what it means to have chen. The chut shel chesed, the mevaser, identifies the chut shel chesed in everyone. Everyone he sees that chut shel chesed on everyone. So he's yearning. So there's these there's two directions of obtaining the chut shel chesed. One is that a person can conduct themselves in a certain way in order to have that chut shel chesed shine forth from them. But then there's the opposite. There's the other direction, that we can work on ourselves in such a way where we identify the chut shel chesed regardless of what the other person is doing. I was talking with two people outside the shul on Shabbat night, It's a very, very powerful story from the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov was known, he was orphaned from both of his parents at a very young age. I think he lost his mother at the age of 3, and the next year when he was 4, he lost his father. And his father told him right before he passed away, he said, "Listen, I'm giving you a tzava. I'm giving you like my last will to you, right? 2 instructions. First of all, you can't be afraid of anything other than God. That's instruction number 1. Right? He's talking to a 3-year-old. Right? He said, can't be afraid of anything other than God. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to love every Jew regardless of the circumstances. Doesn't matter what they did, what they didn't do. You have to love every Jew. That's it. Those are the 2 instructions. So after the Baal Shem Tov's parents left the world, he went to go live in the house of a Malamed. This was like a makeshift orphanage, like someone who's in charge of teaching small children. He went to go live in the house of the Malamed and his wife, with a bunch of other children. Again, this is like a makeshift orphanage, basically. And all the people in the house, the Malamed and his wife included, the teacher and the teacher's wife, were very dysfunctional people, not particularly nice people. They were slightly abusive, and the kids were all crazy, and they weren't nice to him. And it was not a pleasant experience. So the Baal Shem Tov tells over that one day he runs away, he runs out of the house, goes into the woods, and he cries out to the Creator. And he says, "Listen, I can't fulfill the instructions of my father. I can't find a way to love these people. I can't do it. They're terrible. Can't do it." So, right? And he said, so he says at that moment he received an inspiration about an alternative way of looking at these people. And he realized, first of all, the wife of the Malamed has been suffering from emotional trauma her entire life. And the Malamed is suffering from tremendous financial stress, and he's just a wreck all the time. And every single kid in that house came from a tragically broken home, and that's why they behave the way that they do. And at that moment, he had a massive, massive 180 shift of perspective on every single person that he had to interact with. And it was through that lens that he was able to interact with them. This is the chut shel chesed. The chut shel chesed. I mean, it's probably not the best of examples, because there it is talking about people that we're identifying a serious lack that they need. Right? They do need something. But be that as it may, the point is that this was a person that was able to extract from their own consciousness, from their own heart, the ability to see the impetus for chesed directed at everyone, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what was going on. Just the need, the human connection need to be able to emanate out chesed. And this is the pazer. The pazer is from the perspective of, I'm doing it because this is my nature. I'm doing this because it's my nature, not because there's an external factor, but it's my nature to be able to give. It's my nature. And this is the pasuk from that Rav Kook quotes from Tehillim Kuf Yud Beis. It starts off, Ashrei ish yirei es Hashem. Fortunate is the man who lives in awe of the Creator, b'mitzvosav chafetz me'od, and constantly desires for His commandments. Gibor ba'aretz yezaro. He will be mighty in the land, and his progeny will be mighty in the land. Dor yesharim yavarach, and many generations that are blessed. Pizar nosan le'evyonim. He is constantly disseminating to those in need. Tzidkaso omedes la'ad, and his righteousness stands forever. Karno tarum b'chavod. Rasha yireh v'chas. However, the wicked person sees all this and is enraged. Shinav yecherak v'names, and he grinds his teeth together. Ta'avas rishayim toved, and the desires of the wicked will be lost. Meaning, it's contrasting this to the way that the wicked person looks at the world. The wicked person looks at the world with a sense of anxiety, of frustration. He's constantly grinding his teeth together. He's constantly seeing the world as this zero-sum game of people out to get him. Right? So he's closing himself off within. That's what characterizes the Rasha. The tzaddik is the reverse, the opposite reverse. He's emanating outward, pazer. He's just disseminating all the time, disseminating outward all the time. This is the dissemination in action of being able to give that support. Again, triggered by the recognition of the chut shel chesed, just by the fact that someone has a nefesh elokam imal, just the fact that the person has a divine spark within them, that is the chut shel chesed. That is the chut shel chesed. There are things that individuals can do to make that chut shel chesed more visible and more palpable and more experienced. However, there are eyes that can peer into the depths of anyone and see that chut shel chesed, regardless of whether it's being acted out or not.
have a slightly cynical question to ask.
Please. What else are we missing?
Are we pretending to describe these ta'amim as they relate to reading the Torah and how it changes, the sense of the music and the sense and the drama of the pasuk? Are we pretending, and we're just trying to? The Kook is just trying to tell us good points to be a better person? Because when you build up the pazer so much, and there's no example of what. Show me a pazer and how all this goodness and wonderful thing actually in the pasuk would actually give me a different perspective into that pasuk. Well, maybe we don't even care about that. We're just pretending. We're actually saying. I'm just. These are just languages that we're using to say, you know what, this is how you become closer to God. I don't know, something else.
I hear what you're saying. So I think there's 3 points. First of all, you're right. I don't think we care. That's just off the bat. No, I'm serious. I don't think. And to segue into the other points, there is, and I think we have given. I mean, not necessarily with this particular one, but there what. The Shalshelis was the last one. There are, you can. I think that it is an area of study and is an area of application to be able to look at the pasuk and see what is the thematic significance of any given time in a particular pasuk. If you want, we can try to incorporate in future shiurim to bring a specific example. That's a fair request. That's a fair request. Well, sorry. Of course.
Okay, so
sure.
Tell us right now.
Alei Elai Hahara. Moshe from Parshas Ha'azinu.
Okay.
So Moshe Rabbeinu is told to go onto the top of the mountain, Har Nebo, right, and see the land, and then leave the Jewish people.
Okay.
That was the pazer.
So
where's the pazer?
How does that fit in?
The pazer is on the word Alei. Alei Elai Hahara.
How does that fit in thematically?
You really want to hear? I mean, I'm happy.
That's what we're pretending to do. Unless we're not.
I mean, we're not pretending.
It's okay if we're not.
No, I'm happy to say it, but before I say it, I think that we learn each strata of meaning within the writing of the Torah separately. So we learned each letter has a theme. So as we're learning the theme of the letter, we're going to go start thinking and making calculations. Every single time I saw a daled this week, like how does that accentuate the theme that I'm learning right now? Like that's too broad and too complex. Right? It's too broad and too complex to be able to integrate into every time we see a daled. Right? With the ta'amim, it's a little bit more specific, as the ta'amim don't appear right with the same level of complexity. Right? You have a tam here and a tam there. So it's a little bit easier, but still, it's hard because we're talking about the 300,000 letters in the Torah. It's a lot to be able to integrate all these different layers together on the fly. It's hard. So what we're doing with the book is trying to learn the significance in theory of each layer, and then when we come to specific words, we can apply that to the specific contextual place where we happen to find ourselves in. So again, it is in a way abstract, because we're not applying it to any particular word. We're trying to learn each layer independently.
But could you apply what we learned to the pazer?
Wait, I was going to give you the specific example. You asked for a specific example. So this is the example. So on the pasuk Alei Elai Hahara, which is at the very end of Shiras Ha'azinu. What is Shiras Ha'azinu? Shiras Ha'azinu is the parting song between Moshe Rabbeinu and the people. As it says in the previous pasuk before Parshas Ha'azinu, i.e. the last pasuk of Parshas Vayelech, God commands Moshe, V'lamdas Yisrael sima b'fihem. Put this in their mouths, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu teaches the whole Jewish people Parshas Ha'azinu by heart. They all have to learn it by heart. This is like the one part of the Torah where it says there's an idea to know this whole thing by heart, right? Not to have it written down, to know it by heart. So this is his parting message to the Jewish people, and then he goes up the mountain. It says the Midrash Rabbah in Parshas Vayelech that when the Malach HaMaves, the angel of death, came for Moshe Rabbeinu, so Moshe said, "You know who I am? I'm Moshe Rabbeinu. I split the sea. I brought all the plagues on Egypt. Went up to the heavens and brought down the Torah." And the Malach HaMaves says, "Whoa, I didn't know what I was getting myself into." So he goes back to God and says, "Listen, I can't. This guy, I can't deal with him. I can't. Right? He's got right." So Hashem comes to Moshe and says, "Listen, you you pushed away my servant. Like he has one job and you're not letting him do it. He says, no, I'm Moshe, and I'm not going. So Hashem says to Moshe, I'm asking you to come. I'm asking you to come. I'm not sending the Malach HaMavas. I'm not sending. I'm asking you to come. And Moshe says, okay, fine, I'll come. And that's the end. So when God says Alei Elai Hahara, it is the ultimate favor, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asking from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu has all the cards to pull if he wanted to. He has this merit, he has that merit, he has this level of righteousness. He has everything that he can pull out to make a taina, a claim on God, so to speak. But he doesn't. God says, listen, I'm asking you. I'm asking you. And Moshe says, okay, fine. If you're asking me, I'll come. So that's the alei. The alei, the pazer, is the ultimate expression of just giving kindness to the Creator. It's not even kindness to a human being. It's kindness to the Creator. Right? Alei Elai. Is that a fair example?
Yeah, great.
Baruch Hashem. Glad we cleared that one up.
It doesn't sound like the most humble man in the world.
So we have to define what humble means. Which
letter
did we speak about? Which letter did we speak about humility? We quoted a few times from the Maharal in the Siv HaAnava that humility doesn't mean, it has nothing to do with putting yourself down low or elevating other people. It's not that at all. Humility is defined simply by the extent to which you are aware that other people exist. That's it. To the extent that you are aware that other things exist, then you're humble. Right? People have a tendency to think that they exist and like everyone else are characters in their show. That's the basis of, right? So there are other people, but yeah, they're like backup, they're support actors. Like I'm what's going on. So to the extent that you know deeply that other people exist, to that extent you're humble. Which is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the most humble, because he's the most aware that other people exist. How could anyone be more aware? Right? The world is contained with God. God is not in the world, as the Midrash Rabbah says. Right? Ein ha'olam, right? Hu mikomo shel olam. He's the place of the world. He is not in the world. God is not in the world. The world is in God. So if the world is literally in God, he's the most aware of everything else that exists. So because God is the most that exists, the Gemara in Megillah says, Kol makom shel Torah gdulaso shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. Every time you see the greatness of God, Shama Torah anvas anuso. There you see his humility. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he was able to prop himself up. He was able to put himself out there. He was able to assert himself when it was necessary. But that nothing to speak about. That doesn't negate his ability to stand up and assert himself when it needs to be, and it doesn't negate his ability to live in that state of awareness. Tov, Mishar Koch.
Sure.